Okay, week 10 learn together, which really only means we have one more week until we're off to spring break, and then we come back immediately to the week where your project, your Dev 1 is due. So I haven't graded because I haven't seen at this point, and I'm recording this on Thursday before week 9 learn together. And I can't comment on what I saw, the particular things that you did or ran into for the work that we're doing for this week. So actually it'll be week 9, week 10, and week 11. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. So why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this because this is okay, maybe perfect's the wrong word, but this is a good thing to do because everything you're doing in this learn together this week, next, right, and 11 is really it's like a practice run for your Dev 1. So going over this code again, right? And I do want to say this because it's important to me that if you look at my code example and you use it, you got to give me credit or you got to give somebody else credit because, you know, it's a way to learn. But what we want is for you to grasp these and gain these concepts. And I understand that sometimes that's the way you do it. So one of the things I did in my code, not necessarily consciously, but there were things in there that I did that Andrew didn't do. So it was fairly easy for me to see when students had used my code. So I just want to say that. Now, to get to what we're doing, to kind of hopefully lay a little more concept down here. Like the thing that we're doing, and here's my week 10 output, and I've done a little work on validation, and I've, of course, implemented the things that we need this week. So step 1 and 2, you needed to do in week 9, right? So this is save user data to local storage, and then render that with the UUID was this week. But I went ahead and did allow the user to update the entry and allow them to edit. Actually, I'm almost done with 6. So in some ways, right, I actually had already done these two here, but I do want to show you a piece of something that somebody asked me just to help you see it. But coming back here, one of the things, and the other thing I did is I updated it for the latest stimulus numbers, the checks that are coming out. But I want to say this, right? So when you see websites where somebody would go, and I looked at a couple last night where they would enter, right, their filing status, their income. Now, by the way, you're going to see here some CSS that I found on MDN. So notice as soon as I start typing, and the thing is I can't do, and I'm trying to type letters here, and it's because of first doing just the input type number does that. But then I added the CSS, right? Because if I hit submit, of course, that flags that hits the required. But then, and I could set some limits here, but I thought at least if I add, right, some visual hints that at least it's a number. And if I hit tab, I do the same thing here and I hit submit. Now, the thing, and this is what I want to say, is like, I realized this after I was doing it. I'm like, normally what you're doing like at these websites is you're just entering it once and you're getting the information. And what we're doing is we're simulating the idea of multiple users filling it out. But really, it's only us doing it. But the important thing is not only are they giving us the data, right? The 3 pieces that I've talked about. And actually, you could change this, and I kind of already started doing this here, is dependence from children. Mostly because of some of the ways of stimulus. But I'm not really as concerned about that part, right? But I think it is good because the checks look better when you use the current numbers. But back to this. So normally when you're at a website and you fill out one of these forms, that's really you're done and it's not kept in any way. It's just informational. So what I've done here is what we're doing here is we're just, using this concept in order to do the CRUD operations, the create, which is what I just did, the read, right? So first I create the entry, or I call it a request. Then I save that request data into the local storage, and then I update the global variable inside of my code so that I can render all those requests back to the screen. And in this case, if I right click and I come into inspect, and I want you to see this, if I come over to, and this is in, I think this is with somebody, and I won't use their name because I didn't ask them, but we're saying they couldn't see where the local storage was. If you come over to application, you can see, like, here is mine. And so when I did this process of inputting the data, my code accepted the input based on validation and then ran the calculation of the check amount and then stored that in to local storage, right? So I can see that I have one entry here, and I can see the UUID, and it's kept this other information that I gave. Now, at this point, if I wanted to, I could hit X. And what this would do, if I come over here, is it no longer has that because I've deleted my data. So I went into application. Probably you will only see one in here, but it's the key is what you give it inside of your code for the key that you're saving into local storage. So if I do single this time and I do 10,000, which is, and 5, I hit submit, and you can see that that is what's saved. Okay, so first I want you to know that in case you had a problem doing it. So what I implemented this week, in addition to that saving, right? So this week, what you need to do is, right, save that data, user data into local storage, render the local storage data that you saved into the DOM. So this is what we're, when the web page is created, rendered to a web browser, there is a object, the document object model, and it's really just a place in memory where this is, and so you can update it, right? And that's what you're doing here, is by using these document dot create elements and other things to create content on the page via JavaScript. So the thing I added this week, so let me come back here, right? So the thing that I added this week was I rendered to the DOM and allow the user to delete, should be delete the entry. So what I did here is I put a delete button, but let me just do another one so you can see this. It's makes a little more sense, right? So I added a button, and you saw him do this in, I think, in the to-do app. But if you hit delete here, remember what I was showing you before was deleting all of what was in local storage. And what this allows you to do, because of using this UUID, was allows you to target that specific item here, and I can just hit X, and this will run my function to delete that entry. And you can actually see this over here now. I only have one. So this is when we're reviewing the idea of CRUD operations. Create, it's running, filling out the form, right? Reading is presenting it back. U is updating, which I'll do last, and then D is for delete. So what I did here, and this is the piece that, again, I recommend the sooner you do this, the better, right? So step 5 and 6 will, of course, be for 11. And 5 and 6 will be for week 11, just to be clear. And the thing I would say why you might want to work ahead is that if you get this done, the next week, I think I'll have kind of minor things you'll do, like CSS maybe, to get you to play with that. But the thing is, the more you do, the more time you're going to have to work on Dev 1. So I'm just saying. So what I did last night is I was playing with this. So, and there's definitely better ways I could do this. But if I just click on this, it'll take us to what you've learned regarding this ability to edit, right? Using this, passing this UUID, and then in your JavaScript for this page, just bringing this content into the page. And the thing I actually had a really fun time with, and I haven't done the update yet. I will do that last step before next week, right? Was I was able to render that drop down, and actually I'm going to end up rendering these almost identical to this, right? The way it's rendered here. But what's kind of cool is that it didn't take a lot of effort, but this is one of the things that got me thinking about how would I do this, right? Because what happens here is it actually presents the data by looking at the option here. I'm sorry, the drop down, the select and options, and I created those dynamically in my HTML. So the last step I need to do here is actually get this to do. And the one thing that came up, and it got me thinking about this, was a concept that he does not talk about, and it's not necessarily that you need to completely understand here. But one of the things about saving the check amount into the local storage, or again, we're simulating the idea of a database, is there's different thinking about these type of calculations that depend on, that are calculated data values, that typically what you do is you don't keep those calculated numbers. And what you do is when you present the data back, you calculate those numbers at that time. And there's various philosophies around whether you should or should not do that. So just to be clear, one of the things I may consider, but I may just do it quick and easy. And this is not necessarily that you have to. I'll be happy if you're able just to get to the edit page at this point. Again, next week I want you to have it done. But to come back over here, right, and look at these entries, because if I go to the edit page and I edit one of these pieces of information, right, it's going to change the check amount. So then I can either query this entry and update it. I could delete it and create a new entry. But if I was doing it in terms of a real, right, CRUD operation, I'd want to do an update to it. So I want you to just kind of keep that, it's something, again, as you get further along into doing real world kind of business applications, you'll hear philosophies on the different approaches to take. I think in general, because I've done a couple of, and these are called transactional type applications. Not that you're doing a transaction, but you're getting data and you're getting input from the user, you're calculating a particular value. And then rather than to store it, you just recalculate that when you present it back. Now, why would you want to do that? In terms of the stimulus, it's because the stimulus value has changed, right? But we can also change the entry. So it's more than anything, just want you to think about that. So a couple things that I've talked about here today is just trying to help you see that this application that we're doing with stimulus is not really reflective of the application that you would see on the web, but it is reflective of what you need to do and think about for your project, your dev one. Okay. So that's why I did it this way. And notice that I didn't do the some of the stuff that Andrew showed, which I think is good stuff about being able to do drop downs for sorting, right? I don't have date in here. I could totally do that. But what it really got me doing, and this is the point of this assignment, besides just getting more time behind the keyboard and trying to understand the code that you've been writing in the code longs, it just really is getting you thinking about how would you handle, what is it you're going to do for your dev one, and how are you going to handle these, CRUD operations. Although he has not been calling it CRUD, it's me calling it CRUD, but it's in the real world, it's called CRUD operations for your selected topic using the things that we're learning about JavaScript. Okay? All right. Have a great one. I went over what you need to do here. So in your reply, give us the Git hack. And as I said before, discuss if you reviewed code that was submitted to get this work done. And if so, give credit to whoever it was, whether it could have been somebody besides me. But you just need to give credit to them. Now, the hope would be, and I will come back to this, the hope would be even if you looked at for different implementations, you still did it your own way, right? And did your best to learn. Because again, this is a practice run, right? So just honor that process. All right. Have a great one. Peace out.